He has created us to do good works in this life, but they don't get done if we don't take the steps to do them. We can think about them, we can romanticize them and idealize them all we want to, but if we don't actually take the steps, they don't actually get done.
Well, hello again, and welcome to the Trim the Wick podcast. I'm Dan.
And I'm Becky.
And we are back with you again this week. We are excited as we are winding down 2024 and
it's
getting ready.
It's been a short year, hasn't it?
Yeah, it seems like it, it's like, did we really go through 50 plus weeks this year? It seems like it went much faster. And, that is one of the things that, they say, time flies. And I realize as I'm getting older, it does seem like you're having that thing of that time moves faster.
It feels like there's a compression, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I know that you're looking backwards and you're going, well, my whole life has taken, this long. So now it just seems like everything I do now is shorter and shorter and shorter. So there's a kind of a thing that time moves faster, but, we know.
Yeah. But it creates an urgency, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When you feel that time is moving more quickly. And, I know we've talked a lot in recent days about, wow, we really feel like there's a lot of things that God has before us to do. And there are accomplishments that we see ourselves needing to make. And there are commands that we feel God has put in our life. And He's told us to do, hey, you need to accomplish this. You need to do this. You need to follow through on this. You need to build this relationship here. And when you feel the urgency of the time, it becomes that, do it while it's still called today. Because,
Well, and that is weird because I've always been that young guy in the room. And it always seems like, one of these days I'll reach that point. One of these days I'll get there. Well, I'm there.
It's one of these days.
It's one of these days. Matter of fact, probably one of these days have actually passed a couple days back, and now I'm in another stage. But it does seem like there is a pressure of moving forward and an urgency. And it's one of the things that I look back at and go, some of these things we know now, I wish we knew, 10, 15 years ago. Not saying regrets or saying we'd make, but there are definitely some things that as you get older, you do get wiser, you get smarter. Some of the decisions you make and some of the things that we even intentionally have learned, you have to start fulfilling and putting those things into action.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would definitely say probably in the last 10 years, we've had a much clearer vision of those kinds of things, that we've gotten to the place of really pulling away the things that were unimportant that we were involving ourselves in, the things that we felt like the should do things, the societally appropriate things, the things that other people wanted or needed from us. And not that we don't still do a lot of those kinds of things, but the things that people ask of us, we feel a much greater freedom now to say no to than we used to, because there's been that learning process, that clarification of the things that we're actually called to, not just the good things in life to do, but the things that are our things to do. And that's been a struggle for us. And, probably in the last 10 years, we've gotten better at clarifying what those are. And in last year and this year, God's really refined that for us.
Yeah. Well, and I think that this idea of intentionality, of, actually being intentional about what we're doing, what we're learning, because the time is short.
It is.
But also, I think that if you allow others to, it's the old thing, if you don't make a schedule or if you don't make a plan, others will make the plan for you.
Right.
And a lot of times I think that being intentional and making sure that you're focusing on the things that you need to focus on and the growth that you want to have and stuff like that, that is the key so that you can start building and start preparing and start being able to go, okay, I need to do this. I don't need to do that. I need to say yes to this. I don't need to say yes to that. And that kind of trickles through everything that you do.
Yeah, it does. And again, if you get with God yourself and allow him to show you, okay, these are your things. These are the big things that you need to fill your time with. These are your largest chunks of time. Then you see more clearly where those small gaps of time are that you can fill in with other requests that come from the outside, but you're not prone to filling in to the exclusion of those larger things that you need to be accomplishing.
Right.
I remember years ago, I was in a women's conference, and historically, when moms get together, every mom on the planet goes, I don't have enough time for all the needs that I have, right? I just, the kids need this, my husband needs this, I need this, and there's all these pulls on your time. I think it's true for everybody. The lady that was presenting that day, she had brought a big, just like a clear glass vase. Mm-hmm. And she had brought several things to fill that vase with. And she took first and she filled it up with like playground sand, poured in a whole bunch of playground sand. And man, you could just keep pouring that stuff in, and it filled all the way up, all the way up, all the way up. And there was no room then for the rocks and the ping pong balls that she had. It was all playground sand. And then she emptied the vase out again, and she was like, but the ping pong balls, the biggest things that she had brought, those are the really important things that you have to get done. Those are the things that you're called to in your life. Those are the relationships that you need to put time and effort into. These are the things.
Right.
So what happens if we put those in the vase first? And then you can fit all of the big things in, and then you can start filling the space with the smaller pebbles. Mm-hmm. And then you pour the playground sand in after. Right. And you can still get a lot of things done, but you're deliberate and intentional about making sure that those important things have space first.
Right. And that's the part of being intentional, of going, I'm going to make sure that the things that I need for my growth, the things I need for my job, things that I need for my family, for relationships, that those are the things I'm going to focus on the most. The play stuff I can still do. There will be enough left over.
Right.
Now, it might not be as much as you thought or as much as you wanted, but you're going to actually have more opportunity for the play when you do those things. Because what I've noticed over time with us and what we do is that, we work really hard and get focused on things like that, and we kind of push everything else aside, and we get singularly focused. And sometimes it's not for the best of everything that we're doing.
Yeah, it's easy to get singularly focused where your entire vase is one ping pong ball, right? That one ping pong ball takes up the whole thing. But there are things that are of equal importance and equal priority in your life sometimes. You and I have found over the years that our relationship with one another is something that we hold as a high priority. And we have to nurture that very carefully and make time for that. But we also have to nurture and make time for our children. We also have to nurture and make time for our parents. We also have to nurture and make time for friends. We also have to nurture and make time for our professional pursuits.
Right.
Because if we don't do those, it's difficult to afford a roof over your head.
Yeah. Eat.
Yeah. So we have to be careful about that singular focus, because we find ourselves sometimes, especially now with the luxury that we have of both working from home, it's easy to get really targeted, focused on just one task. And, you start your day out and you get up, you get your breakfast, you get dressed, and you get started on that one task. And then the next thing you know, it's 9:30 at night.
Right.
And you've done nothing else.
Yeah.
There are times when you can do that, but you can't live consistently that way.
Yeah, no. So one of the things that we have learned is that, things are not just going to happen. Like, the kids are not going to get played with unless you intentionally play with the kids.
Right.
The house payment's not going to be paid unless you intentionally do the work to earn the money to pay the house payment.
And then you have to intentionally sit down and make sure that payment goes
and
through.
Do it.
Right?
Exactly. And even those things, but even like yourself personally, I feel like one of the things it's one of the worst things I believe that churches do is the idea, come to church and it'll solve all your problems. Just come and pray a prayer and, Jesus will fix all your problems and that's all it is. No. Okay. Yes. It's a great place to start. It's a great place to learn where the answer is and where the fulfillment is there. But you have to become a disciple for those things to get better in your life. You have to start learning about who Jesus is and then put those things into practice. And for years and years, I believe the church preached this idea of just show up. If you show up, you're going to get enough just through osmosis and being here that it's going to change your life and fix your marriage. And what we're learning is that doesn't happen. You're going to have to actually apply what you're being taught. You're actually going to have to seek out what you're being, what's there for you to learn. If I want my marriage to be better, I'm going to have to seek out the things that are going to help my marriage be better. If I want to make sure that I'm doing better professionally, I can't lean back and go, okay, well, I learned a bunch of stuff 20 years in college.
Right. And just leave it at that.
That's good enough for me and I can just coast on. No, things are changing drastically and you've got to be constantly building yourself up, working on your personal development, working on your personal growth.
Right.
So that you can move forward or even just sustain.
Right. And it's a spiritual principle too.
Yeah.
Becoming, you mentioned it, becoming a disciple of Jesus Christ is not just coming to church. It's not just, I'm going to use big air quotes here, giving your heart to Jesus.
Right.
That's a beginning point. Jesus said, come and follow me and I will make you fishers of men. Right? Follow me is the important part. If you just come and you respond and say, sure, I'll follow you, Jesus. And then the next day, Jesus is walking down the road and you're still back here going, look at me, I'm following Jesus.
Yep.
I made a decision. I'm going to follow him, but Jesus is already on the road and he's a mile down the road and you're still sitting there celebrating that you made a decision to follow him. You're going to be way behind where he is.
Right.
If you're not actually taking the steps to walk with him and learn from him. And and it goes to, like you were saying, that intentionality. It's, okay, where are the big areas of your life? What are the big ping pong balls in your spiritual walk? Okay, what's the priority? What's the first priority for you in your spiritual life? Put that in your vase first.
Right.
Make sure that you're spending time in the Word. Make sure that you're spending time in prayer. Build your relationship with the one that you claim to follow.
Yeah.
You want your marriage to be good? That should be another one of your great big ping pong balls in your vase.
Yep.
Spending time with your spouse, not just... you and I have talked about this before. We don't do the weekly date things.
Right.
Because personality-wise for us, those would very quickly be relegated to a ritual that we perform and check off on a checklist. And it would become a task to do rather than a connection to make with one another.
Yes.
And so we're real deliberate about having conversations with each other throughout the day.
Exactly. And also... making sure that when that moment happens, when that door opens, to have a conversation, to have a moment where we're focusing on each other, is that we seek that.
Right.
And we realize and go, hey, we're not going to go out on a date and a movie, and a dinner tonight, but it's Thursday afternoon and we need to do something here around the house. We need to focus and do that thing around the house. And that is our connection time.
Right.
We're going to communicate. We're going to talk about not just the thing that we're doing, but we're going to talk like we're on a date. We're going to talk about some deep things and we take those opportunities as they come instead of trying to putting them in a thing.
Right. It's very much it mirrors what we believe about our fellowship of Jesus Christ. It's not an event driven thing.
Right.
It is as you are going day by day thing.
Right.
Jesus told the disciples, that great commission of making disciples yourselves was as you are going.
Mm-hmm.
As you are going, make disciples,
Yep.
right? We carry that same picture into our marriage. As we're going about our day to day, we're building our marriage. We've parenting our kids.
Yep.
It's not, parenting our kids has not been an event driven thing, but we know that that's a giant ping pong ball in our vase. And as we're going throughout our day, it's kind of become a running joke around here. If we're doing something that's very obviously a low priority thing, it's one of those playground sand moments.
Right.
And we've got the TV on, or we're just kind of vegging out, and one of the kids walks into the room and obviously needs some attention. The mute button goes on the TV. We turn and look face to face, and it's like, okay, you've got us.
Yeah, that intentional engagement. You know, and I think that's one of the things of life. If you want to have good relationships, if you want to have personal growth, if you want to have a better walk with Jesus, if you want to, be a better guitar player,
right,
you are going to have to practice. You're going to have to decide, I'm going to set up this time to do this. And when I have the opportunity, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to meddle here a little bit, because here's where I see the danger with a lot of the electronics. And, we always, back in the 80s and stuff, it was the television that was rotting your mind. You'd spend
and
hours.
then Atari came out.
And then and then it was the video games. And now it's, the video games, it's on the phone, but it's the phone. People sitting in the same room together, and they're just on their phones, and they're not talking to each other.
We've all been guilty of it at times.
We all get guilty of it. For myself, this is one of those things where in my personal development plan right now that I have for myself is I want to read more. Guys, I want to tell you, reading is not an enjoyment for me.
Yeah.
I do not like to just sit down and read. I get no joy out of reading. It is a
But
task.
You do learn a lot.
I do learn, but it is a task. It is a chore. And so one of my things is that I need to read more. So I'm working on that. So when I get down and I start focusing on my phone and I go, wait a second, I've got like 5 minutes here. I've got 10 minutes here where I'm not doing anything. Why would I spend 10 minutes just looking at ridiculous, silly cat videos? I need to put this down and I need to get the book, and I could read a chapter, in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I can improve myself, because that's a goal for me now. And I just think that we've got to start thinking that way just in everything we do. We should be thinking that way, if there's anything that we want, we've got to work towards it. It's not just going to happen. You're not going to all of a sudden start saving money.
No.
Like, money is not going to just all of a sudden start appearing.
It doesn't just jump over into your savings account.
No, you're going to have to be intentional about putting money into your savings account.
Yep.
You're going to have to be intentional, like I said, about bettering yourself. If you want a better marriage, you're going to have to be intentional about working on it. People talk to us all the time and they say, hey, you guys have an amazing marriage. How did this happen? And
we're just that good, and it happened from the start. Yeah.
Listen, we just for 30 plus years now, we just looked at each other and said, hey, you're good, right, girl? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good here, so you're good there. So let's just, be a happy marriage. No, we've worked.
Yeah.
And we've struggled, and we've fought, and we've communicated, and we've had good times, and we've had bad times. And
there's been grace given and forgiveness and all those things, but you have to choose that.
But you have to
decide that that's a priority, because if you don't deliberately, actively, it's not a passive choice.
No.
It's not even just kind of in the back of my head, I want a good marriage, and so I'm just going to put up with whatever. No, because that leads to kind of two people cohabiting as roommates.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, and it might be outwardly peaceful, but it's not actually a good marriage.
Yeah. Well, and we can go into that as a whole nother topic of, the struggle within and the discord within in quote unquote happy marriages.
Yeah. So, but it's not a passive thing. It has to be a deliberate, active choice. Right. And that's true of all these things that we're talking about. It comes down to intentionality starts with deciding what your priorities really are. Mm-hmm. If you're a believer in Jesus, you need to get with him first and ask him to help shape your priorities. What are his priorities for you? Because again, like we were saying before, other people will have lots of input on what your priorities ought to be. You will have your own wants and desires of what your priorities ought to be. And you may completely miss the mark of what God has for you.
Yep.
So you really need to start there if you're a believer.
Yep.
Of going, God, what are those priorities? And then, man, I need to be about that business and not get distracted and not go, but the playground sand is so much fun and it's, it's tactile and it's, a ping pong ball is just kind of flimsy and airy and light, but but it needs to be the big thing.
Yeah.
Focus on those big things first.
And as we are, finishing 2024, and we're coming to the end of the year, there's that struggle of looking back and going, oh my gosh, I wasted all this time. Oh my gosh, I filled my jar up with nothing but sand and I want to do better. Here's the thing is you don't have to wait till 2025. You don't have to wait till a new year to start being intentional about your living and intentional about your life. This is something that you can start right now and just go, you know what? I am going to start planning and being intentional about the life I lead, the relationships I have, my personal development, we didn't even talk about exercise and getting ourselves in shape and, all of that, because it's all part of this.
We know that caring for our physical body enables us to accomplish a lot of other things.
Yep.
If you're just not taking care of that, you're going to not be able to take care of some of that other stuff.
McDonald's is going to take care of it for you. And that's what happens.
And the Lord is very clear about that while it's still called today, we're to be doing what he's called us to do, that, we are to be putting our hands to the things that he has called us and created us for. He has created us to do good works in this life, but they don't get done if we don't take the steps to do them. We can think about them. We can, romanticize them and idealize them all we want to, but if we don't actually take the steps, they don't actually get done.
Because what's the line Michael W. Smith said? The road to good intentions doesn't lead anywhere.
No, it doesn't.
We want to encourage you to have a great rest of 2024.
Yeah.
But an amazing 2025.
And we were reading, I forget even who said it the other day, but it was something that was floating around on the internet. And we were like, that's it. They've got it. And it was, I'm going to not remember the whole thing in context, but it was something to the effect of start on Friday. Start in December. Start at 10 p.m. Mm-hmm. Just start.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, like you were saying, doesn't matter if you've been playing with nothing but playground sand all the way up to this point. Start now.
Yep.
Start now.
Yep.
And make the rest better.
There you go. Well, I think we're going to leave it there for this week. And we hope that this is an encouragement to you, because we really want to see you trim the wick and want to see you shine bright with the fullness of the oil in you. And this is one of those ways that can really get you guys going in the right direction, is that being intentional about everything you do.
Ask God for his purposes and pare your life down to those first.
All right. Well, I guess that'll be it for this week, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Love you guys. Bye.